Hello, everyone. My name is Muhammad Hassan. Thank you for joining me today at TEDx. Before we begin, I want to try something different. Most TED Talks start with a dramatic quote or a life-changing moment, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I want us to go back to something much simpler, something we were all familiar with as children. Any ideas? A story. Now, we all know how a story goes, right? There's a beginning, a couple chapters in between, and an end. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to make anyone come up on stage and act anything out or read a bedtime story. This is the introvert-friendly version, the one where you just sit back and relax and be part of something greater than ourselves. All you have to do is imagine. That's it. Easy? So let's start. Chapter 1, no name, no diagnosis. Close your eyes for 2 seconds. Imagine a person walking into a hospital. No name, no diagnosis, just a human being. What do you think they're feeling? Fear, hope, or maybe that universal emotion when you walk into any clinic and you just think, I hope they don't weigh me with my shoes on today. Now, whatever comes to mind, hold on to it. That becomes the first line of our story. But here's something we forget. In that same hallway, behind that patient is another human being, carrying their own story. It could be the nurse who skipped lunch, the doctor on hour 28 of a so-called short shift, or the medical student terrified that the consultant might ask, can you present the case? A question that instantly wipes out 6 years of education. It turns out that the white coat doesn't magically delete human struggles. It just hides them really well. Chapter 2, the hallway. Now keep imagining. Let's zoom out of that figure in the hallway, and let's picture the hospital around them. The soft buzz of fluorescent lights, the echoes of distant footsteps, or maybe the beeping rhythm of machines. It's a place that feels both intensely alive and strangely quiet at the same time. This hospital is our setting, our stage, the place where our story will unfold. All of you here today are not just listeners. You're co-authors in the story we're writing together. Every image you form, every emotion you assign, every detail you fill in shapes the story we're creating together. So let's take another step. I want you to give our patient a secret, something they're carrying inside, something that no one else knows about. Hold it in your mind, don't tell anyone, all right? Just keep it with you, because that secret, that quiet piece of humanity, becomes part of the story we're building. Chapter 3, a room with 2 stories. Now imagine our patient stepping into a room. There's a chair, there's a bed, there's a window overlooking a parking lot or a skyline. Whatever you pictured is right. This is your story too. The door opens, the healthcare professional walks in, and now I want you to imagine them, not by their title, but by their humanity. What do you think they're feeling? Exhaustion, pressure, a moment of doubt, a moment of hope. Choose one. Let that be the opening sentence of their story. Because in this room, 2 lives, 2 narratives are about to meet. And this is where the cinematic moment happens. Not with dramatic music, but with a simple, quiet truth. Healing begins the moment one human being truly sees another. Think of the last time someone really saw you for who you were, held space for you, listened to you without rushing to solutions. That feeling, that connection, is the heartbeat of our story. Chapter 4, white coat curtains. Let me pull back the curtains for you. People think the hospitals are built on protocols, charts, guidelines, and they're absolutely right. But behind the scenes, it runs on something far more fragile and powerful: the emotional lives of the people inside. It could be the nurse who stepped into the supply closet just to take a breath for 10 seconds before walking back out with a reassuring smile. Or it could be the doctor who stops in the hallway to compose himself before he sees the next patient who needs them just as much. Or it could be the medical student who wants to help but is afraid of making a mistake that might cost someone's trust. These are the moments that no one documents, no one measures, yet they are the simple, quiet threads that hold healthcare together. And now I want you to imagine one more thing. What if the stories of the patients, the stories of the professionals, were treated with equal humanity? Our story changes, our world changes, healing changes. Chapter 5, when the questions changed. My turning point in medicine didn't come from a dramatic case. It actually came from something quite simple. I was asked to take a patient's history, a routine visit. I did what we were taught to do. I asked the right questions, followed the right protocol, made sure I didn't miss anything important. And near the end, as I was finishing up, the patient stopped and he looked at me. And instead of asking about his results, he asked about me, what year I was in, what I wanted to do, and what life was like as a medical student. So I answered honestly about the pressure, about trying to do well, about juggling expectations, responsibilities, and ambition, about how heavy it can feel when you're standing in the middle of a journey and everything ahead still feels uncertain. He listened quietly, then he smiled and said, "Take a deep breath, because in a couple years from now, you're going to look back and laugh at how stressed you were in the moment." He told me his story. He told me about his career, his ambitions, and how he worried about outcomes, just like I was doing right now. And then he said something simple but grounding. What's meant for you will come for you, but what's not meant for you will never cross your path. Take life with a grain of salt and move forward knowing that things have a way of working themselves out. In that moment, the roles shifted, quietly but naturally. The patient wasn't a diagnosis. He was a person with a whole life behind him, talking to someone still figuring theirs out. I walked into that room focused on completing a task, yet I walked back out reminded of something far more important. That medicine isn't just about gathering information, it's about sharing humanity. That every patient brings with them a life, a career, a history, a perspective. And sometimes, if we listen closely enough, it tells us exactly what we need. That was the moment I understood that healing just doesn't move in one direction. Sometimes the patient heals the professional, not because of illness, but because of wisdom, generosity, and presence. And that, to me, is what it means to go beyond medicine. Chapter 6, Beyond Medicine. Now let's keep writing our story, but turn the page just once more. Up until now, we focus on the people inside the room. But I want you to notice something else. Think again to the hospital space you imagined. Look past the bed, look past the roles, past the charts. What we'll find there are some of the most human experiences we will ever have. Fear of the unknown, hope, even when it seems fragile, relief, regret, gratitude, meaning. Medicine becomes the setting where all those come together at once. And here's the shift I want you to notice. The hospital isn't just where illnesses are treated. It's where people confront who they are, what matters to them, and what they're afraid of losing. In that sense, medicine isn't separate from life. It's where life becomes impossible to ignore. And whether we realize it or not, when we enter that space as patients, as professionals, as students, or family, we enter into a story about being human. That's what it means to go beyond medicine. Not adding more science, not adding more technology, but recognizing that healthcare is one of the few places where we are forced to slow down and face the parts of ourselves that we usually rush past. And once you see that, you'll realize that the story we're telling today isn't really about medicine at all. It's about what it means to live. Chapter 7, What We Carry. We're nearing the end of our story, but before we close the final chapter, I want you to write one last line. Imagine the patient and imagine the healthcare professional. Now imagine one small action, one human gesture that one could offer the other. Maybe it's compassion, maybe it's understanding, or maybe it's silence, the kind that makes people feel safe. Whatever you choose, that gesture becomes the turning point of our story. Because what changes people is rarely the treatment plan. It's the human moment that comes with it. So now it's time for you to choose your ending. We reached the point where most stories will offer an ending, but this one doesn't belong to me. Because the truth is, it depends on what you see, what you imagine between those two people in the room, the patient, the professional, each carrying their own story, their own fears, their own hopes. And if you think back to the beginning, it also depends on something else. Any guesses? The secret that we gave our patient, the worry, the hope, the fear, the one that no one else knew about. If you are here today and leave remembering that everyone is carrying something similar, something unspoken, something unseen, then the way you move through the world will change. Your words will soften, your patience will widen, and your connections will deepen. Because that secret was never just part of a story, it was a reminder that behind every calm face, every role, every title is a human experience waiting to be acknowledged. And those small choices, those quiet moments of recognition are what move healthcare forward, not just through better understanding, but through better compassion, better humanity. So the final line of the story is not something I can say. It's something only you can decide. How will you show up for others, knowing that every person you meet is living a story that's still being written and carrying something that they've never really said out loud? Because whatever answer you choose, that becomes the ending of our story today, but the beginning of many better stories ahead. The end. Thank you.